Hi guys and welcome to episode 16 of Beat to the Punch. I'm joined on the call with a few of the boys tonight. I'm joined on the call with Riku. Riku, how's things, mate?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Good.
Good stuff. Looking forward to it. First time on the podcast, so very excited.
Yeah, man, it's been a while since when I met you in London. You were just about to fly out to see Derek James, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, it was. Must have been like last October, November time. So I was on the way. Or I was just about to go to Dallas, and I met up with Derek James and had a good chat about stuff. And yeah, it's a really interesting conversation. He's a cool guy and really open. I guess he was surprised what's a Brit doing in Dallas, firstly, and then secondly, why are they interested in seeing him? So, but yeah, he gets shared some of his experience of coming over to the UK, what Errol Spence for the Kell Brook fight, and some of the stuff he's doing up there with the Charlos and some of the boxing scene in Texas. So yeah, it was a great trip catching up with him and then catching up with a few mates out there.
Yeah, definitely. He's one of the guys that's starting to make big waves in the sport. You know, as you say, with Errol Spence and working with the Charlos. You know, he's really bringing that. It's bringing the Dallas scene onto the. He's kind of behind the Dallas scene. You know what I mean? And he's one of my favourite trainers at the moment. I don't think he gets enough credit as what he actually really should at time. You know, you've got dinosaurs like your Freddie Roach and that still kind of get too much limelight when you've got Derek James at the back, who's doing a far better job.
But he said to me he would only ever train like 4 or 5 guys max. So I guess part of it with guys like Freddie Roach is that it's a numbers game for someone like Freddie Roach. So he might even come along to, he'll come along for Tyson Fury's camp and be in the corner. And I mean, he's been involved with everybody, so he gets a lot of accolades that way. Whereas Derek James will work with a couple of guys only at a time, and then kind of hone those guys rather than try and become known for training 15 world champions or something like that.
Yeah. Riku, I'm just going to give your second name a blast here. Is it Haikala?
Yeah, that's close enough. Yeah, it's a Finnish name, so that's close enough. Better than most people can say it. So yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, I'm also joined on the call by Nathan Dowie. Nathan, how's things, pal?
Yeah, well, thank you, yourself.
Yeah, good, mate, good. I enjoyed your chat a few weeks ago, so I'm glad to have you back on, mate.
Yeah, glad to be back. Thanks for having me.
We are supposed to have Brendan Galuli on the call and Craig Smith, but we're having a bit of technical issues now, so we will see if we can get Craig and Brendan to jump back in at one point. If not, then we'll just go with what we've got. So let's just start off with last weekend's action. There wasn't a lot. We didn't preview nothing last week. But Martin Bakole, who's a man I've interviewed a few times, he was a guy who was, Billy Nelson was quite high on him. He was over in Poland fighting Mariusz Wach. And, he stopped him. I think it was in the 7th or the 8th round. Did any see this fight?
I've seen the highlights of it. He looked quite impressive, actually. He bounced back a lot from the Hunter fight. Felt like he learned. Wach is a good, durable fighter, so a good win.
Yeah, well, this is a thing I was thinking about Martin Bakole. I've just found out tonight that Martin's now a free agent. He's not with Cyclone anymore, which is probably for the best. I've had a rant about this before. He was promoted terribly by Cyclone. But do we think that Martin Bakole's future is now on the road, Riku?
Yeah, I think it's got to be, because if you think of the most of the top heavyweights, so they signed with Matchroom, you've got a few with Warren / Top Rank. So unless he signs to one of those guys, which I don't think they're necessarily going to be keen enough to sign him, he's probably going to have to be an away fighter. So if you're thinking about routes, he might look at fight someone like Hellenius or Agi Kabayel, the guy that beats Chisora, just to try and get up those IBF rankings and try and force a mandatory, because he doesn't really have a lot of options. That's kind of my view on things, because nobody's going to be queuing up to fight him.
Yeah. Well, that's the predicament he finds himself in. I think that there was a lot riding on that Michael Hunter fight, and I think that he really had to win that. You look at Hunter's now just signed with DAZN today. And, things are looking... There's options there now for Hunter over there. Whereas you look at Martin Bakole, you're sitting thinking to yourself, I don't really see where this guy goes, because who's really going to want to fight him in the top 10? Who's going to really want to fight him in Britain? Sorry, and this is where he wants to stay. So I don't really. I find it hard to see where the big man's going to go. So let's start with Nathan. Nathan, who would you like to see Martin Bakole fight next?
I tell you what, a fight I'd love to see him is Chisora. I think that'd be very entertaining. Watch a winnable fight for him as well. He'd do massive things for his profile. Because I've seen Billy Nelson, he was talking about he'd like to fight the winner of Dave Allen and Lucas Brown, but I think Bacole's a level above them boys. I'd like to see him with a Chisora.
Yeah. Well, do you know that fight was nearly made about 18 months ago? And apparently that was, it was supposed to be on a Cyclone card, and it all kind of fell through at the last minute. And, obviously Derek went on to do his things with Dillian White after that. And, fair play to him. But can you realistically see Derek Chisora taking a gamble on fighting somebody like Martin Bakole? Is that realistic?
Chisora's a man for money, isn't he? So if the money's there, I think he would take it, and maybe be advised not to take it, but I do think Bakole would be best off joining with Matcher and try and get his name about, a bit more hype around him, because he's got a good relationship with AJ, so you never know over that way. They could try and get him in.
Yeah, Riku, who would you think would be a realistic next step for Bakole?
I think it's part of the Who Needs Him club. So I think somebody maybe like Robert Hellenius, who's he was meant to fight against Pula, but that fight didn't happen. He's quite highly ranked with the IBF, and he's with Sauerlands. He might be one option. Then the Swedish heavyweight Otto Wallin, that's undefeated, that's fighting this weekend on the Clarissa Shields versus Christian Hammer undercard. So he's quite highly ranked as well, and he's an undefeated guy, and he's with the Sauerlands. That's one option. But then the third option, which I think would be interesting from British perspective, would be maybe fighting Hughie Fury down in the fall, just because it would be a good kind of fight to see where they both actually at, and then the winner can continue and the loser can stay at that level.
Yeah, that's a good...
Yeah.
Is that Joe Joyce? I think that'd be a good matchup.
Yeah, definitely. That's another one.
I forgot about Joe Joyce. So that'd be a good evening match fight.
Yeah. See, I was actually thinking along the lines of maybe Hrgovic. I know that fight was on the cards, but I was told that the money wasn't that great. But, I was thinking, keep in this, Hrgovic wants to fight in Croatia. He doesn't want to fight outside there just yet. And, if Bacole's going to need to go on the road, and, he's got a bit of credibility, he's got something about him, he's been in, he, as you say, he's got the AJ connection. And, so he's got a wee bit of a profile just off of that, with hardcores at least. So then if Hrgovic gets him over there, it's a credible opponent for Hrgovic.
Yeah, it's a good fight, good matchup.
Yeah, and I guess with Hrgovic as well, he's signed with the co-promotional deal with Matchroom, hasn't he? Matchroom USA. So I think they'll want to try and get him in the US at some point. So that might be, he could fight in an undercard or a big fight there against Hrgovic if Hrgovic is willing to leave Croatia. So that would do wonders for his profile.
Yeah, but we kind of just touched on it a wee bit there just before we went on to that. It was about Michael Hunter, his career's like taking back off again, you know what I mean? He's getting a second chance at it. Just how important is it for a fighter like Bakole, guys that's coming here, whereas he's for Democratic Republic of Congo, he's coming here, nobody knows him, he's not got a fan base, so he's not a ticket seller. When they get a chance, they can't afford to fail in it. So I'm just saying, how important is it that they don't fail, when they get that chance?
Yeah, he's got to go for it. Like when you looked against Hunter, he was blowing. He just didn't look well prepared for that opportunity. And I think now, even though it lost, his name has got out a bit more, but I think his next opportunity, he's got to take it. Otherwise, he's just going to be a forgotten man.
Yeah.
I think part of it as well is matchmaking. So fight against Michael Hunter in York Hall you know, relatively early in your career for no title, I just don't think it's a brilliant move, kind of career wise. If you think about where Michael Hunter is and what a threat he was, um, so I know he probably doesn't get the same opportunities a British fighter would get, but going on the road like this fight against Wack made sense because Wack's he's a good name, but he's a faded force. You can probably stop him if you have a good work rate and above par. Well, not stop him, but beat him on points. Whereas Michael Hunter was always going to be a tough opposition. So I think they have to be smart as well. So they can't just accept fighting away with the cards always stacked against him as well. So they have to kind of pick what they're going to do in a way that will advance his career and also showcase him to a wider audience.
As I says at the start of this, Bakole is now a free agent. He's no longer with Cyclone. How would you rate the job that Cyclone done with him? Because Cyclone are free-to-air TV. They've got a free-to-air TV. But Martin Bakole was never once on TV. I've actually been to a lot of Cyclone shows in Scotland. And I'd actually been there and missed Martin Bakole fighting. He was on that early on in the cards. And I just thought that it was terrible. The way that the McGuigans were kind of treating the big man. He wasn't getting any profile. He was fighting in an empty SSE Hydro.
Yeah, it was poor promotion. I think Billy Nelson's done a great job with him on Twitter, hyping him up. Look, he's got his name about massively. It wasn't from Cyclone. I think people heard of Bakole. It was all through Billy Nelson. So I think he's lucky to get away from them there.
Yeah. Yeah, Rico, what's your thoughts on that? Because, I was quite on the Cyclone bandwagon. I quite liked what they were trying to do. But, we're starting to see some instances where they've really made the fighters take a bit of a step backwards.
Yeah, I agree. And it's quite unclear what's happened there. So you obviously had Chantal Cameron leaving Cyclone and a few other fighters have recently left. So I don't really know whether Cyclone, although they had the TV platform, whether they actually had the promotional nous to do things. So a lot of the stuff that they were doing with Frampton was very good, but Frampton was big enough in his own right. So, and he was with Matchroom for a while. He sort of did his own thing. But with the other fighters, I can't really name anyone apart from maybe Josh Taylor that they've done a really good job with. And even with Josh Taylor, he's a name. Well, he'll become a bigger name because of the World Boxing Super Series. But guys like Bakole, they could have done a lot better job with, just in terms of maybe even putting him on matchroom shows lower down the card, similar to what MTK do with some of their fighters or guys like Steve Goodwin over here. Just thinking about trying to get these guys a bit more out there, not just bottom of the card on a Cyclone show.
Yeah. Yeah, I to say there was I know Billy wasn't happy with when I spoke to Billy, and I just thought it was quite strange. The full thing was quite strange, with how Cyclone were treating Bakole. But let's move on. Let's leave Bakole there, and we'll move on to another heavyweight. Another one is maybe nobody really knows where he's going to be going, and it's Hughie Fury. He's coming back next month. We've yet to hear who his opponent is. But who would you like to see him in with, Nathan?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think he's got to be someone British level because he's been really inactive, hasn't he? And I do feel sorry for him. I think his career's been poor managed, inactivity, because he has got a lot of potential and he's gone in on them big fights with not a lot of activity. I'd like to see him probably fight 3 times this year, like British level, European level. So someone solid at British level, possibly.
Yeah, Rico, Nathan makes a good point there. I was actually going to ask you this. There is an argument to say that Hughie Fury's been poorly advised or poorly managed.
Yeah, I guess it's been a challenging one because early on in his career, he used to fight on Tyson's undercard. And now sort of he's the biggest name in the Hennessy Promotions outfit as such, and probably the only name, really. So Mick Hennessy had to more or less bet his house in order to get the fight against Parker. They didn't get the decision. It was a contentious decision for Parker. He was only 22 at that stage. Fast forward 2 years, and he fights against Pulev he fought against Pulev. He lost that fight, but
he had a really bad cut.
He had that cut. Yeah, he had a cut in sparring a few weeks before, and I think they went ahead because they knew that they would lose the shot with the IBF, because the plan was to force the Anthony Joshua fight that way. So they went ahead with the opportunity. So I guess for him, again, they have to. I think British level, he's above that, because unless he fights against your Gormans or Dubois, there isn't much sense to do that. So I think they just have to try and pick a route and try and work their way up that route. So they might try and go back up the IBF route and target some of the same guys I mentioned earlier for Bakole. So maybe someone like Robert Helenius or Augie Kabayev for the European title, or something that will get them in a position to fight for an IBF mandatory title against the Joshua, whoever it might be, the champion then in a year's or 2 years' time.
Yeah, well, see, my thinking on Hughie Fury was, I mean, there was a lot of hype with Hughie Fury. There was big hopes for the lad, but no everybody just progresses at a lightning speed. There was no need to fast track him. And for me, I think he's looking worse now. The last time I seen him there against Pulev, it's probably the worst I'd seen him fight. And I think the fight before that was Sam Sexton, which wasn't really very challenging for him. I think there's too big a gaps between his fights, and he's not consistently working away up a level. He's doing big leaps. Going from Sam Sexton to Pulev, and then from Parker to Sam Sexton. I mean, you're not really learning anything in there. He's no good enough for the world level, and he's too good for the British level. So the logical thing to do is just work your way up through the European level, as you said, Riku. I just think that this try to fast track him. I don't think he's one of these guys that can be fast tracked. I don't think he's got the ability to be fast tracked just now. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Everything you said there. That's what I'd like to see him. I do agree he's above British level, but because he's young, I'd like to get him a bit of activity, work on some stuff, and then push his way into the European level. I think in 2 years' time, with learning on the job, I think, he could be world level.
Yeah, he'd be only 26 in 2 years' time, but I think we go back to the point what we often have with your likes of Anthony Yarde and others. If you have a fighter that's 20-0 and they've sort of been progressed very slowly, then fans get on promoted and managers' backs and say that they need to be progressed quicker. But then if you get them into a world title shot and they lose, or they lose a couple of times relatively early in their career, so fans can be quite unforgiving, myself included, in terms of how fighters are managed and why they've been progressed so quickly. So it's a really fine balancing act. But again, you go back to the same point as Bakole, where if you're not was a big manager or promoter, it's just very hard for fighters to be progressed slowly, because they have to fight out on the road, because you just don't have that money to bring the opponents of a certain level just to come in and, have those learning and developing fights.
Yeah, well, I was actually just thinking that there as you were going on. There is similarities between Martin Bakole and Hughie Fury, as in the way as they fall under the same bracket. They're no way any of the big promoters, and who needs them, as you say, Riku. And I'm just sitting thinking, how does Hughie Fury ever get himself into any position if he's no longer fighting on Tyson Fury's undercards? If he's not got the draw Tyson Fury, he's not got that media interest, and he can kind of drag on the coattails of it. That's not there for him anymore. They're trying to make him his own headliner, which he really isn't. And I just don't see. It's hard to see where that's ending up anywhere positive for Hughie Fury.
Yeah, I think you just have to go the IBF route then, because, although we all have our qualms about mandatories, but the IBF has quite a fair process, and actually Hughie Fury would have beat Pulev. He would have been mandatory for Joshua, which they would have been looking to force later this year. So you just have to try and climb back that ladder.
Yeah. Just to finish up on Hughie Fury, Nathan, do you think that Hughie Fury will fulfil that potential he showed, when he was in his early 20s?
Honestly, I'm undecided. He needs to just get active again. He needs to fight 3 times a year, learning fights, up the mandatories. That's the only way I think we'll ever see if he's going to be good enough. The one thing what does worry me about it, he hasn't got that powerful punch.
Yeah.
And that's, if he hasn't got that, has he got the skills to dance around these other boxers for 12 rounds?
Yeah, well, even in that last fight against Pulev, I mean, he didn't really do that dancing about. He didn't, everybody thought he was going to get in there and move and kind of just burn Pulev out, and he didn't. He went in there and stood in front of somebody like Pulev who just kind of had a go. And I mean, I was really disappointed with him in his last performance.
Yeah, I was disappointed with him, but I do think that cut he had in sparring just before, they should never have put him in that fight. I know that what they was trying to do, but they should have just called it a day. They should have looked after his interest a lot better. Because I think, was it after the second or third round, it was gushing open and he couldn't hardly see, could he, for the rest of the fight?
Yeah, that's right.
It was pull from Peter Fury, to be honest, to let him fight that.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to our next subject, and it's Anthony Yarde and Sergey Kovalev. Looks as if it's all but signed. It looks as if it's going to be set for Russia. How confident are you, Riku, that this fight actually gets made?
I'm not very confident at all, because there's a few reasons. Firstly, there was an IFL interview today or yesterday where Eddie Hearn briefly spoke about it, and he said, usually he can be quite critical about Frank Warren stuff, but he said, to his understanding, Frank Warren and Top Rank have signed the deal, but it's not clear whether Tundi and Anthony Yarde have actually seen the deal or agreed, but there's some backing from a Russian finance guys backing it for a lot of money, so the financial terms could be good. I think it really comes down to, do Tundi and Anthony actually believe what they're preaching? Because if they do believe and the money's there, I can't see why they wouldn't go out to Russia to fight against Kovalev. It's a different matter whether they could win.
Do you think that this is a case these false high rankings? I call it a false high ranking. It's a ranking, it's a real ranking, but it shouldn't be ranked that high. Just how detrimental can this be a young fighter's development?
Yeah, it's, again, we're talking about a guy, it's a bit like Hughie Fury against Joseph Parker, although obviously Kovalev is a lot better fighter than Parker is relatively, but he's skipping a level, so he's skipping that European/British level, and he's jumping straight into world level against one of the top 3, top 4 best light heavyweights in the world. So, but then if you're banging on about the rankings in IFL interviews, you don't really have a choice but to go for these kind of matchups.
Yeah. Nathan, well, Anthony Yarde's lost a few fans because of the slow pace he's been stepped up. Now, we know he's relatively inexperienced, but does that, if he does take this fight, does he bring the fans back on board?
Well, he'll bring me back on board if he takes the fight, because I show him big balls going to Russia to fight him.
Yeah, well, this is kind of a two-edged question, because if he does go to Russia and it keeps the fans happy, is there, again, an argument to say that he's been poorly managed? Because there's no way that this boy's ready to take on somebody like Kovalev. I mean...
yeah, I agree. Because this could be one of them fights he could get demolished in 2-3 rounds, and you never know. But them fighters you never see again. It just kills them. So, to me, I always think a good British fighter should win the British title, move up European, and go world. That's the best thing they can do for their careers. And he hasn't fought nobody. So to jump into this fight, to me, I get it, the money's there, but he shouldn't take it.
Yeah, I'm completely with you there. I mean, I was talking about this last week about Conor Benn being ranked 6th in the world with the WBA, and if I was these fighters, I'd be trying to distance myself from that, because they must know in themselves that they're not ready to be put in there against top 10 guys. Like real world ranked guys, they would just get took apart. So I don't think that they should be using that as a selling point, that I'm ranked so high with the WBO or the WBA. you know, what they should be doing is saying, no, it's nice. It's nice of them to have me up there, and, you know, but I'm not ready. I'm still away learning my trade. You know, he's pretty much still an apprentice, and he's going to be fighting.
Yeah.
He's got to be fighting a guy who's a master craftsman. You know, it's just kind of see it ending very well for him, unless Kovalev goes away in one of his binges and has a poor camp, and that's not the way you want to get into a fight. Is hoping that the other guy's lost interest.
Yeah, I agree with that. The only time I ever think a fighter should take a step up, if it's someone a bit like AJ when he fought Charles Martin. AJ was inexperienced, but Charles Martin was never a killer. A bit like Okoli and Lebedev. We all know Lebedev now is at the end of his career. And Okoli, to be fair to him, in his career has took some risky fights, like 50-50 matchups, and he's come through. So he's had a bit more experience than Yarde, even though he's had less fights.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think about that, Riku? Do you think?
Yeah, I agree, but there is a counterpoint to this, is that actually Frank Warren is very good at catching fighters or names at the right time. So like what Ricky Hatton, Costasu, and the list goes on and on what Frank Warren has done. So there is something that for the last 6 months or 6 to 9 months, Team Yarde have been quite vocal about them wanting to fight Kovalev. So maybe they are seeing something that we aren't seeing. I mean, I don't see it per se, because actually with Buddy McGirt, Kovalev has become a lot better boxer than he's probably previously been. He isn't so much as a brawler, but he still has the power. So I think there isn't anything that I can see in Yarde's arsenal that would worry Kovalev. But I think Frank Warren wouldn't be putting in one of his biggest names and marquee fighters into this fight if he didn't think he had a good chance of winning. I mean, Frank Warren's stable, if you think about the biggest names, you've got effectively Billy Joe Saunders, then Yarde and Dubois and others. So it's a big risk from Frank Warren as well, and he does know what he's doing when it comes to matching his fighters and progressing their careers.
Do you think that when they started mentioning the Kovalev name, it was after he'd been beat off Alvarez? And,
Yes,
you know,
100%.
he looked a bit slow, and Kovalev did look as if he had maybe fell off a cliff. You know, he looked as if he had maybe got old overnight. But I watched that rematch, and I'll tell you, I seen things for Kovalev there that I had never seen him doing before. As I said, Buddy McGirt, as you said, you touched on it. He's got him moving. He was up on his toes. He was thinking about it. He wasn't blowing himself out. You know, he wasn't putting everything into one round. When he felt his gas tank going, he was managing it. I'd never seen Kovalev do that before, and you know, and that's what's got me thinking. Maybe they thought that Kovalev was going to be on the slide, and now that they're in that position and they've done all the talking, maybe he's not slipped as much as what they thought.
Possibly, but I mean, Kovalev's bad habits, you know, they hard to iron out. The motivation was there for the rematch against Alvarez because he had lost his title, but will the motivation be there against Yarde, especially when he's fighting in Russia? Those bad habits, which are well documented, they might be even more prominent if he will be back in Russia with his mates. And the other thing, of course, is we don't know how good Anthony Yarde is because he's never had to show it. So maybe they're seeing something in the gym that convinces them that he has all the tools possible in sparring that he can take Kovalev out. I mean, I would personally back Kovalev to win that fight at this stage, but they do seem quite confident about him, and they do seem to think the timing out of all the champions to go after the guy is Kovalev.
Yeah, you could be right there. I mean, we've never seen Yarde in deep water. Maybe they know something that we don't. You know, so but like, it's an intriguing one because you've got two Sergey Kovalevs. You know, you've got the Kovalev that's fought Andre Ward, and you've got the Kovalev that fought Isaac Chilemba. You know, you would not think that was the same man.
Yeah, and you've got, I mean, Kovalev is 36 years old, and he's had a long amateur career. He hasn't exactly lived the life, so, you know, if they can get him in the summer, he would have had 2 camps back-to-back, 3 fights in about 12 months. So it could be, you know, it could be the right time to catch him.
Yeah, definitely, mate.
Here's one for you. If Yarde don't take the fight, what do you think that does for his career with his fans and stuff?
Well, you see, that's That's the thing with he's this high ranking. Then it looks like a blatant duck. Whereas I don't think it actually is a duck. I don't think he's ready to step up there. But he's now got his back against the wall because he's high ranking, and you know he should never be up there. And to be fair, let's be honest here, that fight shouldn't even be sanctioned when you actually think about it, because Anthony Yarde hasn't fought above. He hasn't even fought at like, English level yet.
Yeah, I agree. Like the fight that should be getting made is Anthony Yarde and Buatsi. That would be a great fight at this stage of his career.
Yeah, and then that would be one that would be like another George Groves, De Gale. They'd be that early on in the career that it wouldn't really matter. It would just kind of see who maybe fast tracked, and the other one would still have the learning to do.
Well.
Sorry, what was that, Nathan?
A bit like the Fowler Fitzgerald fight. They've both come out with like the best fight of the year. They'll both go on for bigger things, and
yeah, well, that's it. I mean, you know, I'll get respect for Anthony Fowler because that fight was going away for him, and then he pulled out that 9th round, and then you know, anybody that leaves everything in the ring, you've got to respect him for it.
I agree.
But let's move on, and this was a topic that you wanted to talk about, Riku, and it was just last week we seen Shakur Stevenson brutally attack someone. Well, actually, 2 people. One of them was a female. Do we think that boxing should be harder on these guys to protect the integrity of the sport? Because also last week there we had Adrian Broner plead guilty to a misdemeanor, which was a sexual. When it went to court originally, it was something to do with sexual harassment, and then it got dropped to a misdemeanor. And just the other week there, we had Adrian Broner again threatening to shoot gay people, and you know, and it just seems like there's a lot of these guys getting out of control. Even with Pulev last week, you know, in 2019, just grabbing a female reporter, and smacking the lips on her, and then refusing to apologise. You know, that was the most insane bit, as if he hadn't done anything wrong. You know. Do we think that boxing should be doing more to protect itself, Riku?
Yeah, it's a really tricky one, because if you think about the Premier League or, you know, team sports and stuff, you have one overarching governing body which protects the integrity of the game, whereas in boxing you have a number of different governing bodies. You have promoters, and ultimately the only person that's interest you are protecting as a fighter is your own interest, and promoters the interest of their own shows. So there is nobody that's there to hold fighters accountable. I think as a kind of my moral compass would probably say that promoters should probably not put the fighters on if something like that has happened until the legal proceedings have gone and cleared this person from all sorted that house. But then as well, you don't want to be stopping people from earning a living. So earlier in the summer, we had a British boxer that was accused of, I think it was sort of sexually or raping or something, a woman in one of these holiday resorts in Spain or something.
Oh yeah, one of the Upton boys, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were cleared a few months later. So, that's obviously a very serious crime. But again, if promoters were to cut their ties with this guy, then he wouldn't have a chance of earning a living. So it's a very complex question. But yeah, I was more interested in hearing your guys' views if boxing could do more to help the image of the sport. And what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think these people need banning. Like, if it was people like us in our jobs, we could lose our jobs and struggle to get another job again. You know, like, for me, they know that this is their job. You know, they've got to be acting appropriate. And, you know, if they do something severe, I think they need banning, a good ban from boxing.
Well, I don't really like comparing Britain and America, but I think here in Britain, I think we've got a bit more. We've got our finger on the pulse a bit more here with the border control. You know, they do quite a bit to keep the integrity of the sport. They're not perfect, but I think when you see some of these American lads and some of the things they say and get away with, and they don't even get a fine, I think that over there, there's nobody kind of pulling the leash, you know. There's nobody reining these boys in, and it's like anybody. If you keep getting away with it, then like Adrian Broner, if he get fined every time he said something, or get banned every time he said something, he would stop doing it because it would affect his pocket. But it's no, people laugh at him. So, I don't know what it is, but some people in America just tap into that kind of humour, whatever it is he's attempting to do, and there's none of the governing bodies taking responsibility for it. And I thought it's quite hypocritical with the Pulev thing that just a week after that, just a week after Broner says he was going to shoot gay folk, Pulev gets a ban for forcibly kissing a woman. I don't see why one person open to punishment and another one just walks away as if he's just done an Adrian Broner, it's accepted. It should be the same rules for each.
But the Pula ban was from from the California Commission, wasn't it? So technically he can fight in New York or wherever other states he wants. So I guess that's the issue. In the US in particular, the sport is so fragmented. So if you can't fight in in a certain area, you can fight somewhere else.
Yeah, definitely. That's it. But we didn't even hear about Adrian Broner getting any backlash from it. But I mean, it's a great point to discuss because I mean, it's happening more and more regular now. I mean, we've seen Gervonta Davis smashing up a fan's phone who was looking to take a selfie with him. Stuff like that.
Conor McGregor style.
Yeah, man, you're sitting there saying, I mean, for the 2 seconds it would take you to take a picture with him, he's smashing up somebody's phone and laughing. You go, somebody has to be taking young boys aside and telling them, setting down the boundaries for them.
Yeah, as you made the point earlier, I think the board here do a good job. So, at least on that part, because if you think about the stuff that happened with Billy Joe Saunders last year, the board dealt with that accordingly. And anything else that happens, the board's quite quick to react and deal with stuff. So in the UK, as you said, we sort of have more or less our act together if something is to happen. Whereas in the US and other countries, you don't necessarily have the same stuff because you don't have the same structure of one board, giving licenses to every fighter, or there isn't that threat that you can actually lose a part of your purse if you don't behave.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Now, just to move on to something else, I'd seen Josh Taylor tweet out a picture, and it was of the venue at Edinburgh Castle for the, it's where they have the military tattoo every year. People come from all around the world to see the marching bands, the pipe bands. And, it's a cracking venue. It's in the backdrop of the castle. It's amazing. Honestly, it's unbelievable. Josh was saying, imagine fighting here. It'd be ideal for boxing. The stands would be right in top of the ring. It would be amazing. And it just got me thinking about, where is the best, what is everybody's best and worst venues, boxing venues? We'll start off with you, Nathan. What's been the best boxing venue you've been to and your worst one?
The best one I would say was the Copper Box. I love it. Great place to go and watch. And the worst one was the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff. I went to the Joshua Parker fight there, and I was that high up, I may as well stayed at home and watched it on the telly, because that's all I did was watch it on the big screen.
Yeah, we'll keep that one in mind, because I'm going to follow on to something in a wee minute, but so, that'll fall on to the next question. But Riku, what's your best and worst venues?
Yeah, I really like the O2 in London, and obviously York Hall's iconic for small hall boxing, great venue. But Manchester Arena is another one, so I think the arena venues, which are sort of anything from 10 to 20,000 purpose-built for, shows and concerts, those are very good for atmosphere, and every seat in the house you can actually see the fight. And again, going back to the worst one, it's Wembley, and we'll probably get back to that later as well.
Yeah.
Did any of you boys see the IFL show in Dubai? That looked some cracking little stadium.
That looked good.
Really impressive that was.
No, I've not seen that. Stephen Tiffany when that was fighting on that card, wasn't he? No, I've not actually got to see that yet.
Yeah,
it looked great.
IFL interview. I think who's it with? It's with Jamie Conlon, and you see him walk around there with the backdrop. It is a beautiful setting there, actually.
Yeah, I watched the card, and Barry Jones was constantly remarking about what a great view they were showing around sort of the golf club and everything. What a great view, and it looked great. Yeah, as an outdoor venue, it was sort of perfectly purpose-built, sort of a arena outdoors.
Yeah, Yeah, well, I've not been to anything. I've not been to anything as glamorous as that. But I mean, I've been to a few shows. I would say that, as you said, Riku, usually these 20,000, these 10 to 20,000 arenas are brilliant for, they're brilliant for boxing because they're big enough to get a good atmosphere built up, and but they're not that big where you're so far away from the ring it looks like a stamp. It's a perfect mixture. And I was at Riga for the World Boxing Super Series, Usyk and Brady's fight, and we ended up with great seats, and it was fantastic. That was one of my favourite venues I've been to. There in the SSE Hydro in Glasgow, where the £20 seats are probably better than your floor seats. They're just raised enough. Your £29 seats for the Super Series. You feel as if you're right on top of the ring. You can see the action great up in the cheap seats. So I loved it there. And my worst is easily Meadowbank Arena in Edinburgh, which is actually pulled down now. That was horrible. Horrible wee venue. Just, it was like watching boxing in a school gym hall.
Yeah.
But, but I wanted to follow on for that because we've got Billy Joe Saunders, who's fighting in, I think it's Stevenage's football stadium, which is quite a small stadium, And it had me thinking, because we have cities across Britain that haven't got these 10 to 20,000 seater arenas. So what I was going to ask is, could these small football stadiums then fill the holes in places like, just say, Edinburgh? Edinburgh's got two quite big stadiums. They're 22,000 seater stadiums, but they don't have any halls. There's no like halls that hold over like 1,500 people. So could this be the future? Mid level fighting. We'll go.
Yeah, definitely. I think the smaller stadiums, you should get a decent enough view. So I say, you know what? If it can get more fans in, because I think you get a lot of the football, like who maybe not so much into football, into boxing. They might think, oh, there's a game, there's a fight, and then let's go and watch that. So it could bring more fans into it as well.
Yeah, Riku, what about you? What do you think? Could the small football stadiums, the smaller clubs, start filling a gap in the market here?
Possibly, but there's always a challenge for football stadiums is that the limited, window that you can actually have shows there because of the football season and then, the pitch and everything else. I think it's a stadium by stadium basis because some of the smaller clubs, the pitch, the stands are a bit far away from the actual pitch, and then, can you actually set it up in a way that you have the screens nicely that you can actually watch the replays, the sound system, and everything else. So possibly, I mean, looking at the Josh Warrington against Frampton showing Leeds, the atmosphere looked good there. Having the band playing there before, before Josh Warrington entered the ring and everything else. So it looked like it was a good setup. So I think it's very much on a case by case basis, but you'd probably need to have a big enough fight that you could have a choice between it being in small stadium or then going into a venue which is 45,000 people.
Yeah, well, that's a fair point, to be fair. Well, what was we as well just moving on. No less any of getting into add to that, Nathan.
Pardon?
If you're getting into add to that,
I can't quite hear.
have you got anything else to add to that?
No, mate. I must admit, like you all said, I think they're better off at arenas or the small hall for me. Maybe these smaller football ones will do it. Like Rico said, it's just on where the stands are situated to the pitch.
Yeah,
These Millennium and Wembley ones, if you don't get pay for an expensive ticket, you may as well watch it at home.
Yeah, I remember paying over £100 to watch Carl Froch knock out Groves in front of 80,000 people at Wembley, which I was one of. So I remember paying that, and myself and my mate and a few other people, we spent the whole card was our backs towards the actual arena because we were watching it in a big screen behind us because we couldn't see anything. Unless you're willing to pay £400-500, you couldn't see anything, and you saw the people up in the heavens on the £40 seats at the top, and I mean, it was completely pointless for them even to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I paid, I think it was £80 for Parker Joshua, and I was really high up. And I literally watched it on this big screen. I could have just paid £20 and watched it in my living room.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I bet you they'd get a cheaper beer.
Yeah, definitely. It didn't taste like piss either.
But just
Yeah.
just while we were, what gave me the idea of that was with Billy Joe Saunders fighting in Stevenage's ground. Does any of us have any doubts that fight will miraculously no go ahead?
Potentially, you know what Billy Joe's like with his career at the minute.
I've got.
Yeah.
Sorry, you go, Riku.
No, I was going to say, I just don't think the ticket sales will be there, if I'm being honest. I'm just a bit skeptic that they will sell enough tickets that they'll run ahead with the show, so they might switch the venue last minute or have a contingency plan.
Yeah, well, I mean, going with Frank's record, and I wouldn't have any consumer confidence. I wouldn't be rushing to buy that ticket, especially now that there is no world title on in the fight. It's quite a pointless fight now.
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
a trash fight in a way.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to some of the previews for this weekend. And there's two massive fights. So we'll start with tomorrow night's fight, and that's Vasily Lomachenko versus Anthony Crolla. Now, I think everybody's agreed that we don't really give Anthony Crolla any chance, do we?
No chance. I think
No.
you're just giving Lomachenko some ring time, to be honest. The one thing I'll give Crolla, he'll give everything, he'll be prepared, he'll be trained hard, he'll give his all, but he ain't got nothing to trouble Lomachenko.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, he's not going to bring anything to the table that Lomachenko's previous opponents haven't brought to the table, and there's no single attribute that he's strong enough that you could think that he could actually bother Lomachenko.
I feel a wee bit of resentment that this fight's been ordered. Sorry, Riku, because we're going to talk about this later on as well.
Yeah.
It's about the mandatory positions. This just feels like such a waste of the precious time. But when are we going to get to see Lomachenko again? And this is one of the fights he's been ordered. Who's to say how long this guy's prime's going to last? And this just feels like a wasted fight. Is it just me? It feels like that with this.
Yeah, it's like a glorified spar to me.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that Bob Arum said that the only reason they're fighting this is because of it being a mandatory and they don't think it's a good fight. They're just going through the motions. I mean, Crolla will get paid relatively well, but nobody wins. Boxing doesn't win. Lomachenko doesn't win, and boxing fans certainly don't win.
We heard Joe Gallagher in an interview, and Joe Gallagher was saying not to write Anthony Crolla off because he started rhyming off these other fights where people had pulled out with injuries. He's talked about Nonito Donaire and Ryan Burnett. That was one of the fights he gave. Well, Ryan Burnett's back went. I was there. The boy couldn't move.
Yeah.
Had to get the paramedics had to pretty much put him in a stretcher to get him out the arena. So I don't understand what is Joe Gallagher getting into this fight hoping that Lomachenko's body breaks down? is that where the chance is coming from?
That's the only chance he's got.
Well, that was the I think it was the interview he did on the Costello and Bonds BBC thing, and they were referring that all these freak things that can happen in boxing, or when Terry Flanagan's opponent tore his shoulder or something. That was another example they used, but I think that's the only chance they really have, and even then, I'm sure there'd be a rematch, which I'd probably back Lomachenko's beat Crolla with one arm or one leg.
Well, he beat what's his face? Jorge Linares. He beat Jorge Linares when his shoulder had went,
Yeah, exactly.
And we seen what Linares had done with Crolla. But after this fight, Lomachenko says he's looking to maybe move back down. And he's called out Tank Davis. He's pretty much saying that he'll not take any of the purse. He just wants to fight Tank Davis. Did we see that fight ever happening? Go to you first, Nathan.
Like I said, it's back to all political reasons again, isn't it? With PBC and top rank, so I don't see it happening. The fight I'd love to see, because I think Tank Davis, if he's mentally prepared, trains hard, he gives Lomachenko a lot of trouble.
Yeah, what about you, Riku? Do you think that this Gervonta Davis Lomachenko fight will happen?
No, because today there's been talk about Gervonta Davis fighting against Gamboa, and Gervonta Davis can fight against Al Heyman style against anyone really, and he'll give him $1 million. But the fight I'd like him to see against Lomachenko fighting maybe 12 months time is Teofimo Lopez.
Yeah, that can happen.
Yeah, top rank. Yeah, that's a top rank in-house fight. But then again, why would top rank make that fight? But it's really hard for Lomachenko at this stage because there aren't many fights at 135 for him to fight. There aren't many fights really unless Mikey Garcia comes down, but that fight has lost its shine a bit. But there aren't many guys left for him to fight really.
Yeah, well, that's it. That Mikey Garcia will be another Riddick Bowe, Lennox Lewis kind of thing for me if that doesn't get made. Mikey Garcia says he wanted it. I don't think it's a fear factor. I just think that it's all down to politics again, and it just seems that the American side of the politics, where there's so many platforms over there that it's just it's so frustrating. We're not getting to get to see so many fights just because what platform you fight for, and it's really damaging.
Mikey Garcia is he's a free agent, but he sat out 2 years because he sued Bob Arum Top Rank. So I wouldn't see him jumping to do business with them very quickly. So that fight's hard to make from that perspective. Maybe Tevin Farmer might be an interesting. It's not a great fight, but it might be an interesting one. Tevin Farmer against Lomachenko.
No, Lomachenko would destroy Farmer.
Well, yeah, he would, but it would be a relative.
Yeah, Bell and Crolla, I suppose. Yeah, and it's just as we says, it's that Luke Campbell and that's floating about there. Could that one maybe come into play?
I think that'll happen with Lopez myself, Luke Campbell Lopez with the WBC.
Yeah.
And that's a fight I'd like to see, actually. That'd be a great fight.
Agreed.
Yeah,
I'd give Campbell a good chance in that fight at this stage of Lopez's career.
Yeah, he wants to fight him sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Brendan Galuli usually comes on. Teofimo Lopez is from his neck of the woods, and he's high on the boy. But do we think that Teofimo Lopez is ready to move up to that level, that world level? He's not really. Is there anything to suggest he's at that level yet?
I think he's just below the elite guys. I think him, Luke Campbell, be pretty evenly matched. I think Lomachenko, Garcia, they're a bit above him at the minute, but he's probably a year down the line. He needs to fight someone like Campbell to get the experience.
Yeah. Well, the one thing about him is he's not shy in calling out Lomachenko, is he, Rico?
No, he's not, and I think they're building him well. So he fought against Jesse Magdaleno and beat him handedly, and that's a guy that people thought that Terry Flanagan, when he had his title reign, that would be sort of 50-50 fight. Now he's fighting against one of the few only Finnish boxers in Eddie Tatley, who was a European champion. So it's a good European level fight as such, who he'll beat very easily. So Tatley's a guy that beat Patera, the guy that beat what do you call it, Ritson.
Ritson, aye.
So you've got they're building him steadily, but for Top Rank, the challenge to move him in a time that that you want to have Lomachenko making money and headline pay-per-view shows, and you want to have Lopez doing that as well. So you've got two stars there. So until Lomachenko starts declining, Top Rank are in no rush to get Teofimo Lopez against him, but maybe what they'll try and do is get him against someone like Richard Comey towards the end of the year or early next year.
Yeah, that seems like the sensible route.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but I feel as if we've just totally ignored Anthony Crolla. And Anthony Crolla's been a great representative of boxing. He's a nice lad. Come through a lot. There's a point where was it, get his head, he get hit in the head with a brick after getting his house robbed. There was a time we didn't think he was going to be back in the ring after that. He's come back, he's done well.
He's probably overachieved, but you know what, fair play to him. He's had a couple of good money fights, and I'm sure he'll put his best in against Lomachenko, but it's just mismatch.
Do we think that this might be the last time we see Anthony Crolla?
It's hard to see where he goes after this.
Yeah, what about you, Riku? Do you think there is a future for Crolla?
Yeah, I think I have to agree with Nathan there that I think it's hard to see where he goes, one thing. And the other thing is, if he takes a bad beating, he's not short of, 40-something fights. So it would be nice to see him call it a day with his health intact. And, he's quite a good talker as well and seems like a really nice lad. So hopefully, he got a chance to work maybe in boxing afterwards. So I think he was in the corner for Callum Smith or one of the Smith brothers in one of the fights, I remember. So maybe he'll turn to become a trainer. Maybe he'll do some stuff for Sky Sports. So it would be nice that he doesn't prolong his career and he leaves the sport in a good health, because he's been a great servant to British boxing and seems like a nice kid.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I think Eddie's got a soft spot for him, so there's no doubt that he'll end up either working on DAZN commentary or staying on Sky Sports in the commentary team. But the other big fight this weekend is actually a female fight. That's us, 2019, and this is me previewing my first women's fight. Got to admit, right from the start, I'm not a big women's boxing fan. I don't really know a lot. I've seen Christina Hammer before. I've not seen Clarissa Shields. But I just don't like Clarissa Shields. I've seen her in interviews, so I'm going to go for Christina Hammer. But this fight's that big and intriguing. It's for all the belts. It's going to get me interested and it's going to get me watching. Does that mean that women's boxing is on the rise?
Clarissa Shields, she's a good talker. She's doing well for women's boxing. I'm not too interested in it myself, to be honest, but I probably will watch it, and this is probably one of the biggest women's fights what can be made, so I think it's slowly getting there, but very slow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is probably the biggest female boxing fight for the last 10, 20 years or something like that. And I wouldn't say it's getting there, because the challenge is there aren't enough good female boxers to have these competitive matchups at this level. So this is two, pound for pound, top 3 or 4 female boxers fight against each other. Outside of Katie Taylor and a few other Brits, I can't really name any of the other female boxers. So I think until female boxing becomes more competitive and these kind of fights, stand up on their own right, then it's going to be hard for it to grow. But one thing I will say is, which is a shame, is I've only realised that obviously you've got the DAZN card on the same day, so you've got Jaime Munguia fighting in Mexico, and then you've got Peter Quillen fighting against Caleb Truax as well on the same day. So you've got 3 cards, so it's a big missed opportunity for female boxing to put a show on a night when there isn't any good boxing, and maybe get some more eyes on it, because I know Showtime did sort of an all-access series for this as well, so I think it's a bit of a missed opportunity for female boxing.
Yeah, it seems crazy timing to put it up against, male cards or male headliners. It seems a bit of a missed opportunity, as you say. And I have to totally agree with you, Rico. I can't believe that... No, sorry. There's just not enough depth in women's boxing for it to be competitive at the top level. There maybe only be 1 or 2... elite level, and then that's it. The rest of them, you see fights getting stopped for, one lady maybe take like 2 or 3 punches, the fight gets stopped. You even see the referees going like they shouldn't be in the ring together. There's that big a golfing class. You see it with Katie Taylor quite a lot. they just beat these lasses down, and you go like, when is Katie Taylor going to get this a big test, you know?
Yeah.
And that's it's one of the things, you know. I want to watch it because I think it's like I watch a wee bit of women's football now, and it's not. And what I've found easier to watch it is stop comparing it with guys' football. Just look at it as a completely different sport. So I'm going to try and watch this. I'm not going to watch it and go, oh, this is terrible compared to men's. What I'm just going to do is just enjoy it for what it is and see if I maybe get a bit more enjoyment. You know, I'm going to get a bash. If I can't get excited for this fight, then women's boxing just isn't for me.
Yeah, it's a bit like athletics and tennis. Tennis, which women's, female athletics, female tennis stands up in its own right, and people are actually interested. UFC is another sport which has done great. Females headlining big cards or as chief support. So I think what boxing needs to try and do is focus on just getting competitive female matchups and getting those on, getting some entertainment that actually fans enjoy watching them on their own right, as you said.
Yeah. Unless you've got anything to add to that, Nathan, we've only got the must-see part of the show.
No, nothing more to add on women's boxing.
So we'll just start with you. What have you seen this week that you'd like to recommend?
It's actually someone you're not too keen on. I was watching a documentary on Clarissa Shields, and it was a life story and what she's been through. And she's had a hell of a journey coming through. Like, she's done really well to get where she has. And it's a must-watch, actually.
The one on Netflix?
Yes.
Yeah, it's good. Really good.
Oh, I'll need to watch this. I might actually watch this when we get off here.
Yeah, she had such a hard life. When you watch it, you'll probably grow to like her a little bit more.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to that. Do you remember what it's called?
I'm not too sure what it was called, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'll try and find it on Google so that the listeners can actually find out the name.
Yeah.
Just a moment, yeah. But yeah, it's a very interesting story because it tells about her upbringing and everything as she was a young child basically. It's called T-Rex, like the dinosaur. That's what it's called. But yeah, he talks about her Olympic journey, some of the family trouble she's had and, grown up in a household where she's been abused. But it's funny because you can see her fight against Savannah Marshall and stuff like that when they're both young. So it's quite nice to see them.
Savannah Marshall,
yeah, the only person to ever beat her, Savannah Marshall.
Oh, right.
Is she with Peter Fury?
Yeah, she's with Peter Fury.
Yeah. What about you, Riku? What's your pick for this week?
Yeah, I'm sure quite a few people have seen this already, but BBC Newsnight did this documentary on Dillian White, which I think came out last week. So that's on BBC iPlayer. So if anybody wants to check it out, just go on BBC iPlayer and just write Dillian White, and it's like a BBC Newsnight show. So it's like a 1 hour documentary, and it sort of follows him around for the last 12 months. For most boxing fans, they'll know everything. I mean, it will be quite familiar stuff, but he talks a bit about his training and his career, and they sort of tail him around. And it ends where a few weeks ago at the Matchroom show, where the WBC president's there, and they talking about what next. But he details about some of the challenges trying to get world title shot. But what was really refreshing was Dillian White. Being Dillian White in front of the BBC, so saying all the things he says on the IFL, and this female journalist trying to chat to him while he's in his house, and he's just sitting there playing PlayStation. And yeah, it's quite funny just if you follow Dillian White on IFL or anywhere else, but it's worth a watch anyways.
Yeah, well, they couldn't have picked a better year to follow Dillian White, because, last year, Dillian White had a phenomenal year. He became...
Yeah, exactly.
That's when he made himself the other guy in the heavyweight division. So, that's definitely worth checking out. And earlier on, when you messaged me saying a Dillian White Newsnight special and Dillian White, I thought it was going to be a joke, Because anytime I've watched Newsnight, it's been about politics or, it's been,
I know.
I thought they've only been doing Brexit the last 6 months.
Yeah, I know. It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
I guess Dillian White is refreshing. I mean, I wouldn't want to hear his political views after watching some of his IFL stuff, but it was quite funny. Just the way how he talks about basically, Joshua being a bottle job, and it's just one of those things that he's so refreshing to see someone on the BBC that's actually themselves.
Yeah.
Rather than like being a polished boxer and stuff, and it's just the same old Dillian White that you just get.
Yeah, that's what's refreshing that's what's refreshing about Dillian White on IFL as well. He doesn't pander to Eddie. He's quite outspoken, so he's quite a likeable character. White, I always find. But
and he's actually making a good career now. Look, he's getting his own stable of boxers that he's actually doing quite well.
Yeah.
He's well managed. He's self-managed.
His brother, isn't it?
Yeah, and then they've got legal advice and a few other people, but he's made a lot of money. One thing is that, and they know what their value is, and they stick into it. And actually, he's not playing. He won't end his career broke. Put it that way.
Yeah, that's it. But time's getting on a bit now, so I'll just get through mine quickly. Mine's it's an old thing. It was from Box Nation, but I watched it on YouTube, and it was all round by round documentary, and it was Nigel Benn, Jerry McClellan fight. Go through that, just breaking the fight down round by round, giving you a wee bit of the insight into the build up, and that fight is gruesome and as brutal as it is. There's something absolutely amazing about watching it. I don't understand. It's just it's pure barbaric, and even though I know what happened to Jerry McClellan after it, there's just something that draws you in with that fight. It's just, I don't know what it is. It's like a bloodlust. I don't know, but there's just something spectacular about that fight. I could not believe, even watching it still to this day, I can't believe Nigel Benn won that fight.
It's one of my favourite fights ever. As you said, there's something. It's the best and worst in boxing, kind of in one fight, and it shows the spirit of Nigel Benn and getting up through the ropes, and everything from fortitude to great boxing and everything else. So yeah, it's an unbelievable fight. Although the ending is sad.
Yeah, it's as you say, Jerry McClellan's still a young man with all his best years ahead of him. And they lost it all that night. But and then you hear some of the stories about the stuff that he used to do back home, and I think as a young man, Jerry McClellan, maybe wasn't the nicest of people, but you wouldn't wish that on anybody. But it's one of them things. But it's fantastic. I'm sure the programme's called Round by Round, and it used to be on Box Nation, but as I say, YouTube have it on there, so you can definitely check it out on there. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I'll check that out later.
Yeah, but unless any of you guys have got anything else to say, I think we better wrap it up because we're all in beds for work tomorrow.
Yeah, that's everything for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything from me apart from I still don't understand why Gerald McKellen's training that fight is his Stan Johnson wears that sailor cap. That's still something that I have no idea why he's wearing that in the corner, but apart from that, I have nothing else to say.
Oh, and we actually forgot to go into your topic about the rankings, but do you know what? You could come back on next week and we'll do that.
Yeah, we can do that next week, no problem.
Yeah, no problem. Right, but thanks very much, guys, for coming on. You've been superb. Really enjoyed it tonight. It's been good fun, and hopefully get you back on in the near future.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
Cheers, pleasure.
Right, thank you.
Speak to you soon.
Right, bye.
Bye, boys.
Bye.